Thank you for joining us today. My name is Samira Tilley, Industry Marketing Manager at Assemble Systems, an Autodesk company. In today's webinar, we will look at how Joeris General Contractors are using Assemble to improve their pre-construction processes. Now let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Tim Kelly, Senior Product Manager at Assemble. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Samira. I'll dive in today with just a quick high level. We're going to discuss Joris's use case of Assemble, the benefits they've gained. So we'll start with some quick introductions of our speakers today. We'll do a high-level overview of Assemble and of Joris, and then we'll let these guys jump into their particular benefits they see of model-based quantification and validation using the model for various workflows they have at Joris. So with that, as Samira mentioned, I'm a Senior Product Manager at Autodesk. I'm responsible for, within Preconstruction, our portfolio around quantification and estimation, and that includes Assemble Systems. I'm really excited and passionate about leveraging model-based information throughout the process and driving adoption in technology both in Preconstruction and in construction. So with that, Andy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
This is Andy Gajbhiye. I'm the Director of Construction Technologies for Joeris General Contractors. I've been with Joeris for about 10 years, and I facilitate the use of construction technologies and fostering innovation across the company.
And this is Daniel Olivares. I'm the Senior Estimator for Joeris General Contractors. I am a part of also the Innovation Ingenuity Group that Andy runs for our company, and have been kind of leading the pilot program and implementation of Assemble for us.
Great, thanks guys. Quick overview of Assemble for those that are new to Assemble. I'll say first and foremost that quantities are the center of what we do here. And they're useful throughout various workflows, both in early design iterations, throughout pre-construction efforts, and on in through construction and turnover. What we do with our model-based information is apply conditioning and additional information throughout that process so that you can leverage that to pivot the information to make it relevant for any particular packaging or any particular conversation. Assemble is a cloud-based system that's really easy to use, and ultimately what we want to do is make it broadly accessible across your project team. We want to make it a platform, and it is a platform for you to add and share information across your internal project team as well as your broader external project team that may include your design components, your owner, your other consultants, and other parts of your project team. So why is Assemble different, and what do we add to the overall process? It's about taking that design data, the models that are generated by the design team, adding construction information, doing that conditioning process to make it ready for use throughout the course of estimating, budget development, work packaging, your quantity takeoff and estimating exercises, schedule development, phasing, planning, etc. And the idea is that, let's kind of step through a quick scenario with that. You're sitting down with your mason. He's bid the job, and you're working through a buyout process, and you're having a conversation with their team on what they're proposing for the job. You've already done your conditioning within the model, so you can quickly pivot that information to have visuals and aggregated data to look at as you have your conversation. You start discussing the bid documents versus Addendum 1 that's just recently come out, and within Assemble you can quickly see those changes. You can actually isolate what's been added, what's been deleted, and what's had a material or type change. From there, you've captured all of the quantities and aggregate and make sure that they have that in there, and you have that in their contract, and you've agreed on that total value. You then pivot and start to talk through and dive into phase 1 discussion, and so you quickly isolate the job by just their package and just their phase, and you can quickly color code like we have on the screen here, by the different types of materials they have. That mason then suggests for a particular area a material change. You can flag that, dive into the quantities associated with that, apply a unit cost, and understand Maybe this is a valid value engineering change that you want to propose to the architect, and you can actually then really quickly flag that and initiate the conversation right there. So the idea with the symbol is through that model conditioning process and everything that you're going to hear Joris talk to today is about having the ability to make the data relevant to a particular workflow, to a particular conversation, and keep that relevant data the focus and enhance the collaboration that you go through, enhance that conversation that you're having. So there's a long-winded way of introducing a symbol, but I just wanted to step through that before these guys actually dive through a number of different workflows. So guys, why don't you talk to us a little bit and walk us through who Joris is and what you're doing.
So Joris is a about roughly over 50-year company. Gary Joris is the current CEO of the company. His father founded the company in 1967. So on the screen you can see the timeline. We have offices all over the Texas, and we are a regional construction company, not national, and we are headquartered out of San Antonio, and our offices is in Austin, Houston, and DFW, and Daniel is out of our Dallas office. He started in San Antonio, he then got stolen away into our Dallas office. So that's a little bit of background about Joris. I don't want to talk too much about Joris's markets and all that. We're going to touch base as we talk through about our different project delivery methods and some case studies that we're going to discuss about how we use Assemble that made us successful in delivering a product. So having said that, let's move into the show about how we are using models during pre-construction in low adoption sectors. And Daniel can talk about what does he mean by saying low adoption sectors and what our challenges are in pre-construction typically, and what change we have been seeing in last couple of years ever since we made the switch. This table is yours, Daniel.
Thanks, Andy. As Andy said, we're a Texas-based contractor, and we in our markets that we compete in, there are some specific challenges. Over half of our projects are educational in nature. Also, half of our projects are CSP projects, with the other half being a combination of CM at risk and negotiated. Of the over 550 million that we did last year, like I said, about 275 is educational. And those markets are very competitive, not only on the contractor side or the construction manager side, but also on the design side. You have to understand that the design teams have to be competitive as well, which means that it's very production driven, and their production is leading to a set of contract documents, not necessarily a model that can be used for quantity takeoff. And so it's very important to understand that there's challenges on both the design and the construction manager side. We've all seen the webinars and demonstrations by very large companies that have a large VDC staff or that have some hand in the design process, but we typically don't get that with these projects. So, we're faced with that, as well as on the other side, improving efficiency. We recently gave a presentation and asked the room, if anybody had seen that pre-construction timelines have been compressed, and of course, nearly every hand went up. So we're definitely seeing the need to turn around estimates more efficiently. And then when changes are made, the whole team needs that information as soon as possible. They need it now, and in order to make those decisions. And then being able to communicate that information back on what those assumptions are that you made or what those quantities are derived from, that was really all about improving efficiency. Throughout this process, in our pilot process, we looked at Assemble. We were using a different solution when we started a couple years ago, looking at Assemble, and we're able to compare it side by side. While we were piloting this, we found a couple of key items that, of course, stood out to us as that were going to improve our processes, and that of those two, they are that it was easy to use, which means not a lot of training, not a lot of software, and a very user-friendly interface. And then the collaboration aspect of it was key. having multiple estimators and team members be able to get in the same project, get in the same model, and look at the same thing together was key in getting the teams working efficiently. We also found that, of course, there are situations where using the models will work best. And of course, it's when you have good quality models and a collaborative team. The data you're getting from the model may or may not all be there, and you're not always going to have all of these 5 points fulfilled on every project. But the key is that if you are having access to the model, then why not use it? And there's always going to be something that you can get from it. That's what I've found, and that's what we've found in working with our projects, is that you are able to quickly condition the data that's going to be useful and the data that's not going to be useful. And you may have to rely on some other takeoff methods, but being efficient in certain trades or certain items that you're taking off just helps reduce the turnaround time for any estimating process.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's key to understand that just because part of the model isn't composed the right way, you're still there's still other value there. There's still a way to make use of, maybe it's just the skin or maybe it's just the structure, but you can definitely make use of what's there.
And one of the things when Daniel was saying that the clients needing information now for any change they want to make, they want something quick. So I was thinking about it. It's really the instant gratification, not almost, but it's kind of leading towards, because we live in a society like Amazon, where you order something, delivers the same day. In that kind of the way we are leading our lives, getting 3 weeks is extremely generous to give them a budget for any change they're making. So this tools allows you to function like Amazon.
Right. And so after our pilot process, we're looking to implement this on more projects. And we found several uses and several value features that with Assemble that helped improve the entire team. First, getting an understanding of the project, bringing in a project team, a superintendent, and a project manager, while you're in the design phase, to help get some feedback, some logistics, some any type of that information, either sequencing or schedule feedback. Yes, we could plop down a set of plans in front of them and have them take a day or two to try to construct the project in their head. But using Assemble, we can give them access to this model, and they can get, in a few seconds, have an idea of what the project is all about, where the challenges are going to be, where they're going to need to spend some more time with their sequencing, with their phasing, with their specific trades that are high risk. And so that was very valuable to get the entire team involved early on. Another value that we found was that we could monitor the design progress. Yes, we have milestone estimates that we usually have to meet, but when we're getting access to the model on in between those milestones, we can keep track of where the project is going cost-wise and quantity-wise. So we're able to keep tabs on where the design is headed and also what still needs to be done. This example here is, we've created a simple Assemble property. We're able to tag our steel as sized or not sized and get a quick visual on what our quantities are based off of, how much of it is still in design and how much of it is complete.
That correlation between the quantities and that visual, I think, is key for that. You were just talking about that communication. It clicks so much faster for so many people when you have that visual representation and select a component, or like in this case, you've got color coding associated. It's so much more visual when you can very quickly, color code or illustrate exactly what you're talking to. It really helps the conversation and moves the dialogue along, rather than a typical process previously would be to try and point it out on a document set and flip pages back and forth. So that 3D visual is really important there.
Absolutely, and you're not only tracking the progress, but you're tracking all the changes that are being made along the way. And like Tim was saying, that having a quick visual of what's changed from then to now really makes your process more efficient. Then you know what areas to focus on when you're preparing your next estimate or in your next design review meeting, what items you might need to talk about with the design team. And that really creates a team atmosphere when you can talk about those changes before it gets to the point of, sitting down with your owner to review your budget based on a milestone set. Quantity verification, of course, we started using Assemble, for quantities. And so not only were we able to check quantities that are bid, but, in Texas, and I'm sure in a lot of other places, the market is competitive right now. And when you're at a 50% or a DD set and you're begging a subcontractor to give you a budget that's non-binding and that they have to spend time on without the possibility of getting the project, then it's really tough in these busy times. And so when we can help the subcontractor kind of visualize the project and with quantities, we get much better information back, and we're able to get them an early look at the project without spending a whole lot of time on it. So this is a great tool to be able to share with subcontractors to help them to help us during our pre-construction. Those are the main features that we found very valuable, and a few of these other ones are really just cherries on top. Easy walkthroughs with Assemble. We can sit there and look at sight lines, look at different aesthetic options, and get those during our design review meetings. The smart sheets with the linked objects is another cherry on top, because when you get an early set, not everything's tagged, not everything is delineated, and so being able to click on something in a sheet view and see where it is in the model and get some more information on it is really helpful. And of course, the field team is able to access it, and our superintendents and project managers can access it on their iPads, and that just gives them another way to get to the information. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of success stories, a couple of projects that we piloted, and then after our pilot, another project after that process. This particular project was a church education building. Now, this one started as a large worship center with an educational building and an administration wing as well. Our first estimate was about $20 million on that one. But of course, I'm sure a lot of you know that things change during pre-construction. And so we had the owner decide that maybe this worship center wasn't their priority right now. They wanted to drive the education center and get more people in there so they can drive their attendance, and then later on look at adding a worship center. So this is about the time that we started piloting Assemble, and we used it side by side with our previous tool, and we just found so many valuable features that we already talked about. Then later on in the process, the owner decided that maybe they didn't need the admin wing, and they wanted to start construction a little bit sooner. And so they didn't have as much funding in place because they were still in the process of fundraising. But wanting to break ground sooner, they decided that they didn't want that second floor admin wing. So that was a big change, another big change that we had to price pretty quickly. And we worked with the design team, and they were able to revise their model to delete an entire second floor and make some modifications to the front there. And by using Assemble, we're able to get our deltas from our previous phase and reprice that project in just a few days rather than a week or two waiting for quantity to take off and things like that. But being able to make that quick decision and that big decision in just a few days was a really great success story for implementing Assemble on this project. After our implementation of Assemble, we were awarded another project as a construction manager, which was an elementary school prototype. This project, we were the construction manager on. We were going to get milestone sets, but the architect also told us that they were going to be sharing the model with us on a weekly basis, which is, probably the first one that we've seen up in this area where that's going to be a standard process. We took that as a great opportunity to really see what Assemble can do from start to finish on a project during pre-construction. We, of course, pulled those models on a weekly basis, and we were able to monitor that design progress, monitor those design changes, and really we were able to be proactive by doing that. We not only, were giving those milestone estimates, but we were updating our estimate on a weekly basis with those models. And we were also involved in weekly design review meetings, and we're able to get ahead of any cost impacts that we saw could be coming. For example, in one design change or one weekly update, we saw a lot of storefront change to curtain wall, and that was going to be a significant cost impact. So in our weekly review meeting, we brought it up and said, hey, is this the intent, or are these just placeholders, or what is going on here? And we see this as a potential cost impact. We're able to talk about it and able to decide where the areas were going to be storefront and reduce the amount of curtain wall, and just confirm that what we were seeing was going to take place. And that way we could be prepared for our next milestone estimate with the owner. That was very helpful, and we continued to have several occasions like that where that happened. Another one was where some cladding was changed from brick to stone, and we were looking at the possibility of a big cost impact by changing to stone in a lot of places. So we were able to get that ahead of sitting down with the owner. That way it wasn't either a surprise to the owner or the architect. And when you can do that, it turns it really into a team atmosphere, and you're able to talk about those things ahead of time. That way everybody's on the same page. The success here was that from our schematic design estimate to our bid day, we were within 0.5% of our initial estimate when the numbers came in. That's incredible, especially, our goal is being within 1% on the cost, and to be able to get this within 0.5% was just an incredible success, and really showed the value of using it throughout the entire pre-construction process.
That's incredible. And I have a quick question on that. Not all design teams, not all architects are willing to take the effort and actually get this in an environment that can be shared on a weekly basis. I think more and more it's now it's easy to do that. They're not doing any extra work, but I'm just curious, any feedback from the design team on what sort of value was added through this process from their perspective? Ultimately, I'm just curious how this changed the dialogue and how involved in this process they felt, given they were giving you guys updates every week.
Right. I think being able to update our estimate and our numbers on a weekly basis really helped them kind of steer their design. And there was a couple of cases where we shared, what we were seeing through Assemble. We were able to help them explain what was going on from what we were seeing. And I think it was, steering that design process is kind of the goal of a construction manager.
The transparency that it creates when you show where the quantity is coming from, where the numbers are, because the architects are the ones, the design team are the one who's the producer of the Revit models. So they are doing at the back end the quantity takeoff through schedules and whatnot. So when you speak in their language, and also you're leveraging yourself as a CM by showing that it's not just the quantities of mason, but it also relates to scaffolding and all those things that when you add, the cost goes up. So you're adding that value to the whole team effort, and everyone in the team gets value out of it. And I think that's what we have been hearing from the design team as well, if that answers your question, Tim.
Yeah, that's great. And I love to hear that that's been a really collaborative process for you. And I also love to see that on your slide here, the success story is we were proactive. So we weren't reacting to the design. We weren't providing budget feedback based on what was given, but you were proactively asking, hey, we saw this change. What does this mean? Is this the direction you're going with this component? The conversation is, oh no, we haven't decided that yet. We're thinking this. It's great to see that proactive nature, and I think that's how you ended up resulting in a 0.5% from BD. That's great.
Yeah, I just also wanted to mention, because we started off, that we were in a competitive market, but we were able to do all of this without involving our BIM or VDC folks. And so we handled this in our estimating department, and they didn't have to do any model rework, model processing, because, as estimators, we're involved in the project, on a daily basis, and we can usually tell what's supposed to be there, what's not supposed to be there, what we can rely on. But that was also a huge success, not having to involve, our BIM folks.
Absolutely. And typically during pre-construction, what we always see, and again, like Daniel was saying, we did a presentation and we asked this question to the room as well about how many times at SD you are being told to give you're told a budget, and then at multiple milestones, at different milestones, that is budget is blown away, and then you end up doing PE at each milestone, and all the room was laughing. It almost happens all the time. So what really it does to us is design is managing CM. This process allows us to be more proactive, and the outcome of that is now CM is managing the design, because during each weekly review of the models, we are able to quickly understand the intent, and allows us to provide feedback to the whole design team that changes the chart of where they will end up at that milestone at which we are supposed to give an official budget. So I absolutely love this project and the success story of that. I'm very passionate about it. So is Daniel as well. But we want to move on with the third topic of the presentation, which is about the strategy and mindset. So those are the results. Those are the success story that we have so far. And we want to take a couple of steps back and now talk about, so what is it as leaders in your company you need to think about to make that change and to get these results. So it's really about developing an implementation strategy and fostering that changing mindset. So our strategy was two prongs, one with the estimators and other with the operation leadership. So with the estimators, like Daniel was talking about, that the model-based cost estimating is not new for us. We have been doing that since 2013 or 2012. We were using a different software. We had a different strategy at that time in implementing, and we failed. We failed miserably because we wanted to take that process and we put the BIM department at the forefront of that, which is not the case. And if anybody in the audience is trying to do that, and if they are successful, it's fantastic. Then I want to hear what made you successful, because we failed. So when we were piloting Assemble, we put Daniel at the center of it, and he was passionate about it, and we made estimators in charge of that. And it's a part of estimating. It's an estimating tool. It is the estimating department that needs to lead it with the collaboration of VDC folks. But the VDC folks doesn't need to lead any of that. Just because a BIM model doesn't mean it's the BIM guys' show. It is not. It's an estimating process that gets better, and this is just a tool that makes that estimating process better. So it's your pre-construction people needs to lead it. The coaching, that was another different approach we did while implementing Assemble, because in our previous software we did a blanket training. We put everybody in the room. We brought people from other offices. We fly down the trainer from different part of the country. Paid them good money. They trained all of our estimating people, and then they went back to the same old thing they did before. So it did not work. That failed as well. So this is a big change for the estimators, especially because they have been doing certain things in a way that have made them successful, Whatever percentage rate, win rate you have in your company, kudos to the estimating staff for that. So they have been successful with it. Giving them a tool and telling them to do something different, it's daunting. So a one-on-one coaching is more important. And in our case, Daniel is the coach who's coaching our other people in the company on how to use Assemble. We're not quite there yet. I think we are maybe 30%, 40%, or maybe half of our estimating team is on board with it. Our other half is still not. So it's a journey, and it will take time. But this approach has been working a lot much better than our previous approach. Obviously, spreading the success story is extremely important so that people knows that, oh, it wasn't just another initiative that started and died. Communicating those success story help people understand that, no, this is the initiative it started as an initiative, but now becoming a standard operating procedure, and now it's a reality. Everybody is using it. You either get on the bus or get off the bus. And throughout this process, eventually, then Daniel and I were talking the other day and said, so what is our goal for coaching our people, for having our people use the Assemble or this model-based cost estimating software? And it didn't start it that way, but really our goal kind of changed to developing our estimating staff to be VDC enabled. It is the junior estimator, senior estimator, them understanding how to work with the models, how to communicate the quantities, and how to run meetings with this more sophisticated tool is what you're trying to accomplish. So you're really developing your people, and people is the focus of everything. And you're developing your people, and you're making them VDC enabled. So that kind of organically evolved into becoming our goal and the purpose of all the coaching. And then the next implementation strategy is about leadership. If at Joris, it's the project executives that run the projects. They are the top of the team. They are the client representative. If they are not on board, then you're really trying to make things work at the grassroots, and it will not stick. So having a coaching plan for your project executives is extremely important. So develop that, find out the personalities of your project executives. Most of the PX are very type A personalities, so I'm very positive everybody would agree with me. So you will have to cater the coaching plan accordingly based on who you're dealing with. But what works really is when you focus on process. Again, this is an estimating tool. None of the PXs, project executives, or the operation leadership going to care about how amazing this tool allows you to take the quantities. What it allows, the way we've developed the coaching plan is we focus on the whole pre-construction process and how this is enhancing that process and how it is allowing us to provide a better value to the project and to the client ultimately. And that has been working really well. Again, our goal is to make the process better, not to focus too much on the tool, but our focus is on the process. And fortunately, this tool has been flexible enough to adapt to our process. So it's been great so far. And then we talk about the change in mindset. I don't know how many of the people in the audience are from a technology background, but I've been in the technology world in construction for about 10, 12 years now, and I've seen this number of times that technology adoption is 90% psychology and only 10% is about that actual technology. I firmly believe that after being shot down thousands of times in the company as the change agent at Joris, I get pushback all the time. I completely agree with that. And what it really translates to is getting the tool set is 5% of the work. And getting the skill set, that means training your people on the skills, on the technical skills, is 5% of the work. Cultivating that mindset on why they need to do certain things, what value it will bring, having that behavior that you would want in your people, that's the 90% of the work. And cultivating that mindset, it's going to be the biggest amount of work when you talk about pushing a change. So we saw that if you want to push the change, you have to start talking about what does it mean for them personally, what does it mean for the team they're in, the projects they're serving, the partners they're working with, and their customer. So once the people realize who's getting value due to the change, they are more leaning towards adapting it. Someone wiser said one time that if pain of doing nothing is larger than pain of change, then nothing going to happen. So it's important to communicate the value and to communicate ROI. So the way we internally measure, we focus on value more than just a return on investment. Obviously, our CEOs want the return on investment because that's how they're spending money, and they want to see, so what happened to my XYZ dollars that I spent a year ago, 2 years ago. So internally, we focus on success based on value, and we measure that as a quantitative value and qualitative value. So quantitative value is your tangible. That's something that you can actually measure. To us, it was about the number of projects on which we used Assemble so far, which is about 24. And Daniel can testify to this, but it reduced the people who have actually embracing Assemble are now seeing that their takeoff time is being reduced by about 35% in doing the variance report if the models are reliable. The people who are using this tool, they're more happy. They're saying best thing ever because I just took the takeoff in 2 hours versus 2 weeks. Again, that Amazon mentality. They're getting the product they want quickly. And the most importantly is improving our efficiency for the whole estimating process by 15%. So those were the things that we were able to measure internally. And then there are these intangibles that is a qualitative value that cannot be measured, like how amazingly it has improved our decision making. Like Daniel's sharing the success story about how, as a team, our estimating staff is making the whole team able to make better decisions rather than pointing fingers at each other or showing them a Timberline line item saying, yeah, take off 60,000 square foot of glass from your project. That conversation never sticks really well with anybody, neither the client nor the architects. So it has improved the decision making and improved the collaboration. And my best part that I love out of all this is how it is making us as a CM do a better job in managing design, which I feel it is a job, versus design managing CM. Goes back to the example that we're talking about with at the elementary school, not the school prototype that Daniel was saying, but how proactive he was in looking at the models each week and giving feedback. That was us CM managing design. Doesn't mean we manage the design team. No, we don't. We manage the design, which is what puts the CM at risk. So that's our overall assessment on the mindset piece, I feel. Daniel, do you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it really well, and I think it's been a great addition to our tool set as estimators and pre-construction teams.
That's great. I love the last statement you made there and the qualitative value. And it sounds like from your experience, you guys are having a real dialogue with the design team and adding value there versus I've had a few friends of mine that are designers that say their experience with CMs in a design review session is every time something is discussed or proposed, there's somebody that says, well, that sounds expensive. that's their traditional experiences with the CM managing design is cut, and it sounds like you guys are super proactive with how you can control the conversation, how you add value to the discussion and the dialogue there. So it's really fantastic to hear the success you guys have had with this process. And on that note, I know it's a lot of effort to pull this kind of information together. We really appreciate you guys spending the time today with us, with all those online and talking through your story. So Andy and Daniel, thank you guys. Thank you, Joris, for the time, and we really appreciate it.
Andy and Daniel, thanks again for such a great session. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. We truly appreciate you spending some time getting to know more about Assemble and Joris. We hope that you can join us again on another Assemble webinar. Take care and have a wonderful day.